I said, listen, I appreciate the acknowledgement because there's a part of me that's grateful, and you have to be grateful. And I'm appreciative of the acknowledgement. I mean, at least they're acknowledging him. But man, I just felt it was a slap in the face ultimately. I really did. And I was like, even asking myself, am I taking this wrong? And, to them, maybe it's no big deal. Obviously, it wasn't. Hi, this is former WWE and WCW star Shawn Stasiak. Some of you know this already, but some of you may not. But I am a second-generation wrestler. My father, the late, great Stan the Man Stasiak, was the fifth wrestler in the history of the WWE to become WWE champion when he defeated and ended Pedro Morales' 3-year reign as champion on December 1st, 1973 in Philadelphia. So you can say that, my dad's got a very deep lineage and roots to WWE history. He was one of the original champions. And of course, wherever he went in the world, like where it was Japan or Australia, Canada, Europe, maybe one of the 32 territories that existed during the territory days, he was always a big name, a big hit, mostly known to be a dreaded villain. But, he was a beloved babyface at one point in Portland, Oregon, in the Pacific Northwest, Don Owens promotion. Nonetheless, I just remember my father as a young boy. I was with my mother. I was probably 4 or 5 years old. They thought it was a good idea to take me to a wrestling match at Madison Square Gardens in New York City. And I was too young to understand what was going on. All I know is my father's in the ring. He's bleeding. The crowd's 20,000 people are screaming and yelling, and I started crying. I was upset. I didn't understand what was going on. So that was my very first memory of seeing my father in a professional wrestling ring. But then, of course, when I mentioned the territories, that's when, the Pacific Northwest in Portland, Oregon, especially at the Portland Sports Arena, that's when I met a young 8-year-old Dwayne Johnson. I was 10, he was 8, because his father, the late, great Rocky Johnson, Soul Man, came through there just like all these other stars. Roddy Piper, Jesse Ventura, the Sheepherders became the Bushwhackers, Andre the Giant, Harley Race, Ric Flair. These are like some of the biggest names, these legendary names in the business that came through the Portland territory. So I remember my dad, interacting and working with some of those guys. And of course, my dad then would often take me back to the dressing room to meet some of the wrestlers and to be able to meet Andre the Giant, a live living giant right in front of me, a live giant in my living room, drinking beer with my dad until 5 a.m. in the morning. Imagine that, being a little kid hearing ho, 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 these big giant laughs to come down to see there's a live giant in my living room with my father. Okay. So these are just cherished memories that you just can never buy. And I had the same experience here in Dallas, Texas with the Von Erichs. My dad worked with Kerry, Kevin, David back in the 80s, Fritz Von Erich, their father. So Dallas and Portland are two of the real instrumental, influential memories that I have of my father growing up around the professional wrestling business. I learned about my father being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame through Twitter. I had just finished a workout at the gym. I walk out to my car, and all of a sudden my phone starts lighting up. I get these notifications from Twitter and these wrestling fans saying, hey, congratulations, they're finally putting your dad in. He deserves it. It's about time. And I'm like, as soon as I saw that, you would think that I'd be elated, I'd be happy, I'd be excited. But it was actually the opposite was true, because I knew at that point what had happened. This was literally, I think, a day or 2 days prior to WrestleMania weekend. And usually they had the Hall of Fame was on a Friday night, I think, or maybe it was a Saturday night. But anyway, I live here in Dallas, Texas. This particular WrestleMania, I don't remember what number it was, but it was in New Orleans. So it's a very short flight away for me. It really hurt, because I knew at that point that, I had never received a phone call. I never received a text. And so to learn that your father was going to be inducted into the W Hall of Fame that way, I had questions. I was scratching my head thinking, what on earth? Like, who's going to induct him? Like, are they going to want me to do this? I get ready in 2 days. I mean, I was confused, but I was upset because I felt that they never informed me. And I just thought that I would have at least deserved a notification or to just let me know that they were going to do that. So that's how I learned of my father being inducted in WWE Hall of Fame. It wasn't a call from Vince. It wasn't a call from anyone from the office. Again, not a text, not an email, not a phone call. It was through wrestling fans on Twitter. Well, my initial reaction, again, was confusion, but at the same time, not really. I was like, they wouldn't just put him into the WWE Hall of Fame without notifying me, would they? But because of, and I won't make this about me because it's not about me and it's not a sappy story or feel bad for Shawn by any means, but this is just the truth. I'm just coming from my heart, guys. I'm being very authentic and real here. I mean, I always am in these interviews, and whenever I share these stories, these are all coming from the heart. It really hurt, and I was surprised, but then I wasn't surprised because of just the way that I felt my relationship was with that. It's like the analogy I'll use, like you're knocking at the door of a home, there's a family inside and you're outside in the cold and you're just knocking at the door trying to be let in so you can be part of this family, right? But the door never opened for me, right? For whatever reason. Who knows what the real reason has been, but I've never felt included or a part of the WWE alumni, the WWE family. And there's a piece of me that's, I think, longed for that for many, many years. You hear other wrestlers and talents talking about, Vince as a father figure. And I just lost my father not too long, prior to me coming aboard WWE. So I think when I arrived there, that's the only place I ever wanted to work. The only promotion I ever wanted to work for was the WWE. And I think there was a piece of a family feel with the McMahons and just that promotion. And I think it just brought me closer to my dad. I just lost him, and that was the commonality, that was the link that kept me close to him too. And I know I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I made some mistakes, man. I mean, we all do. That's what life's about: living and learning and refining yourself, right, and growing as we go through this journey of life and go through these different chapters. But man, when I found that out about my dad being inducted, I knew at that point, because for a couple years prior, because one of my favorite, most exciting aspects of the WWE Hall of, or the WrestleMania weekend is the Hall of Fame, and I always get emotional, and I just have so much respect for all the men and women who paved the road before us, and for me, even have my short stint career that I had, really. And so I love the WWE Hall of Fame. And for a while there, I would see these video packages, like Legends Wings and different, categories. And for a couple of years, I was starting to get nervous, like, wow, he wouldn't just show up in that. They wouldn't just put him in that, would they? Because I just felt that my dad, being the 5th wrestler in the history of the WWE to become champion, even though he held the belt for only 9 days, I think that was a very instrumental part of WWE history, being one of the original champions. And I just think that he deserved to be inducted by someone personal, myself, his only son. Or if it wasn't me, then somebody, of his era or generation that would have been fitting for that. But I anticipated for years. I promoted it. I campaigned it on social media for probably a good 7-8 years. So when I learned about, through Twitter, that he was going to be inducted, I knew at that point, I said, they're going to do their own thing. They're cutting me out of this thing. And so I just instantly was very, very hurt, very upset. I was really pissed off, and literally get into this the next point. But I had to make a phone call, and that was to Vince McMahon. And I didn't think he'd pick up because it was WrestleMania weekend. The best thing I could do is then text, right? And I just asked him, I said, listen, I appreciate the acknowledgement, because there's a part of me that's grateful, and you have to be grateful, and I'm appreciative of the acknowledgement. I mean, at least they're acknowledging him. But man, I just felt it was a slap in the face, ultimately. I really did. And I was like, even asking myself, am I taking this wrong? And, to them, maybe it's no big deal. Obviously it wasn't, right? But it was a really big deal for me. And it would have been a really big deal for my dad. I know it would have. Just to give me 5 minutes. I don't even need 10 minutes or less. Let me go up there and prepare a speech, share a couple funny stories. My dad was a fun guy to be around. Tons of funny stories. Everyone loved my dad. And I would have just accepted that honor and that award in my father's name and in our family name. And that just never came. So when I text him, I did get a text back. And I'm sure he saw that I tried calling him a couple times. And I just asked him in my text, I said, Vince, look, I appreciate the acknowledgement, but don't you think that, maybe he deserves just a little bit more to be inducted in the Hall of Fame? And wouldn't it be more fitting maybe the following year they were at MetLife Stadium in New York, New Jersey, in that area, that's WWE's backyard. That's WWE's home, right? And I just thought it was more suiting and fitting. And it doesn't matter what I think, but that was just my thought process. And I would think that they would think that, just logically, geographically speaking. If there's any one place that my father was going to be inducted in the Hall of Fame, would be in that region, that New York, New Jersey region, in WWE's backyard. And I just thought, I just think that he deserves an actual induction. But soon after, I received a text back from him, and it was simply nothing personal, but it was just a company decision. And you can imagine, I text back quite a novel, and I said a few things to get off my chest, spoke from the heart, as always. But then I think the response again was, no disrespect to you or your family, but this is just a company decision. So I don't buy it. I'll never really accept that. I don't think there's any excuse or reason other than there's some personal vendetta. I'm not one of those guys going to point fingers and say, oh yeah, if I point fingers at anybody, it's always at myself. I've messed up a lot in life. I've made a lot of mistakes. I made some mistakes when I was with the company, the 2 tenures that I was there. This was not one of them. And I just felt that, and here I am, a speaker of all things, right? You think that they would call upon me to induct my father. I'd be able to put together a nice little speech, a couple funny stories. Again, thank you all. Good night. God bless and goodbye. Right? Never came. Really, really disheartening. For a while there, it really consumed me, and I had to learn to let it go. But just to give you the level of, and not to over dramatize this, but just to give you a comparison. Look, I lost my mother when she was 39 years old. I was 14 years old. The first day of high school in Portland, Oregon, September 4th, 1984. I lost my father. He was only 60 in 1997. I was 27, or just about to be 27, right? I'm sure any of you who have lost a loved one, a family member, you can relate to this, right? It's some of the most grieving moments you'll go through. Breakups or divorces in relationships, those are tough. When I lost my WWE dream the first tenure I was there because of a stupid mistake on my end that was no wrongful intent whatsoever. That's the honest to God truth, but it was stupid. It cost me my job. But it was heartbreaking that I lost my WWE dream job because of something a prank that went wrong and backfired, and I lost my job. And I don't think I ever recovered from that. I don't think that's why we could never get it right, WWE and I. And most people know this, and I know this. I never even scratched the surface of my potential. Again, not about me, but I'm just giving you this backstory. I'm trying to rationally think about why this would have happened. This ranks right up there as far as the grief that I felt from it. It really affected me for a while. But again, I don't let it consume me. I've released it. I let universe, like God, karma, energy, whatever you want to call it, I trust in that, and what's meant to be is going to happen. And but I've compartmentalized it where if you ever wanted to pull some real emotion from an archive file that exists, it's still there if I ever need to pull from it, but I don't let it consume me. It is what it is. It's unfortunate. I did the best I could. I would have really loved to have the opportunity to induct my father into the Hall of Fame. And how about be invited? That was another slap in the face. That to me was like rubbing salt in an open wound, in a cut, right? It's like I would have liked to at least been in the building to pay my respects to all the other legends, and especially, the 20-second video package they gave my father and threw him in that Legends wing. Would have been nice, but that even reinforced my intuition, or at least how would you interpret that any other way? They don't notify you. They throw them in some 20-second video package, and they don't even invite you to the event. Don't take that personal, just business, Shawn. Come on, man. But all in all, my father's legacy in the pro wrestling industry, regardless of WWE or no WWE or how they went about inducting him into the Hall of Fame, the legacy that my father leaves is something that I've learned about in more recent years, just through social media, interacting and speaking with various fans at different appearances and direct messages, and even talking to some of the guys in the business. The legacy he's going to leave is that he made an impact and he made an impression on so many people in a good way, even though he was a dreaded villain and a heel, right, for most of his career. But he was a beloved babyface. But regardless of what story he was telling, people to this very day will never forget Stan the Man Stasiak, because he was a man's man. I mean, hence Stan the Man. He really was the man. When he walked in a room, not just with the physical presence, garnered people's respect, but it was an energy. He exuded an aura about him that just, you could not notice him. He was always there, you know, and in a big presence. And, you know, just a fun-loving guy, would give you the shirt off his back, prankster, great storyteller, had the boys laughing. He had a mean streak. He was a tough cookie, but he was a sweetheart of a man. Great soul, very generous, loving, caring, go-lucky, happy guy. I think that's really truly the legacy. Apart from wherever he went, whatever territory he went to, it didn't matter. He was a top draw, main event guy, but it was just as a person, as a man, among that profession, among his colleagues, the respect that he garnered, the impact and the impression that he made on fans all over the world will never be forgotten. So that's truly his legacy. Remember, it's not so much what you say, it's how you say it. And it's not so much what you say or what you do, it's how you made that person feel. Professional wrestling fans will never forget Stan the Man Stasiak. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Join me next time for another episode here with Shawn Stasiak.